Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 8th of February, comes to you from London. And a lot of green on the screen this morning, especially in energy markets, which we'll take a look at shortly. Green everywhere, so looking strong all round. We start by looking at the dollar index, remembering this is my weekly, my daily, and my 60-minute chart with the corresponding point and figure targets. So we're seeing here the dollar is continuing its run on that medium-term chart. Long term, we are bearish below the cloud, but looks like we might have formed a bottom here. And we're seeing on the 60-minute chart, we are just pushing that little bit lower. We're seeing the euro also sinking lower. So that's interesting that we've just hit resistance there on the cloud, looking strong on the longer term chart. Rise, consolidation, rise, but we have seen in recent weeks just a fall away there on that stronger dollar. We do have a downside target here, but for the moment we just need to watch that 60-minute chart. Keep an eye on the 1-minute charts if you're trading currencies. Looking at sterling, we're sitting at 137, holding that level against that stronger dollar. So sterling looking even stronger against the dollar. So that's encouraging, making multi-year highs. And against the euro, we're nudging that 114 level. We've got targets to 117, so that's the key level. This 113.87 target was given. That was given back in September. That's now met. That just shows you how valuable the targets are. We do have targets to much higher against the euro, and we are again making multi-month highs. We haven't seen these levels for nearly a year now. Bitcoin sitting at $39,000 hasn't been enough to yet deactivate the downside targets, so they still hang over us, but we are looking more bullish above the cloud here. So that is looking better, but we need to break to new highs to take away the risk of those downside targets. Just look to be faltering a little bit there on the 60-minute chart. If you're trading Bitcoin, keep an eye on the 1-minute targets. The S&P 500 index on Friday was up, so that's looking stronger. The Nasdaq was also up. And we are seeing today on the futures markets, the S&P future up 0.3% and the Nasdaq E-mini up 0.3%. In fact, US stocks had the strongest move last week. We see that weekly candle. That was the strongest move we've seen since that November candle. So that's really very encouraging indeed, the strongest move for a few months. Taking a look at the VIX volatility, it is up this morning, but it has been below 20, and that is really the floor for the VIX. So the fear index is at a low point. We did have that jump last week, but we are seeing now that move back, and we saw that in the longer term chart. You can do the point and figure targets on the VIX. We did have this upside move here, which gave us a very big upside projection. That has been now negated. That move down to the 20 level is actually showing through. So markets much less worried than they were a couple of weeks ago. And if we look at the FTSE future, we're up 0.6% this morning. The cash market in Germany up 0.3%, and the CAC 40 up 0.66%. So starting to look like we might break higher on the CAC, looking bullish on that short-term chart with an upside target. Still has work to do to break to new highs, unlike the DAX, which is at new highs. Looking at Japan, we're up nearly 2% there. Weaker yen helping, stronger dollar. That means companies in Japan will have stronger yen earnings. Not much change in Hong Kong, but we are still holding on to the bullish trend here. The Shanghai Composite up 1%. China looking very strong, having broken out. So we do have big upside targets for China. That's looking good. And the Sensex had an amazing week last week, really the strongest week we've seen on the Sensex for years. And that's pushing higher again this morning. Upside targets to the moon for the Sensex. So looking very strong in India. Looking at the Australian market, was up 0.6%, so that's looking stronger. Not yet making a new high, but breaking higher. Taking a look at gold, we're up very slightly this morning. We're back above the $1,800 mark, so that's good. Does look like we're putting in a higher low for gold. We're just really waiting for the break. The long-term chart is bullish, but we did have these mini downside targets. We've met those. Looks like we're recovering off a bottom, and the key thing is that bottom is higher than the bottom that we saw back in December, so looking a bit better there. Silver sitting at $27, So that's also holding its gain and starting to recover back into bullish territory on the short-term chart. We've got some big upside targets for silver, of course. Copper sitting at 365, so that's looking better. The move in copper, a really good indicator of industrial strength, and especially in Asia, and that's pushing higher. Demand for copper still there. US 10-year yields back to 1.19%, so we're really seeing this push higher. Remember, we had this jump, this pullback to a higher low, and now a higher high, really emerging out of the long term. We've got upside targets on 10-year yields to 1.37, 1.53%, and on the medium-term chart, again, similar levels. So it's looking like bond yields are really going to break higher. So that's really significant there. So keep an eye on that. But it looks like we're breaking this 120 level, having pulled back. So a lot of volatility in the bond market, but really looking very strong for US bonds now. US 10-year yields, so that's the US 10 yields. Looking at the energy mix now, some really big things going on here. We're seeing crude oil breaking higher, above the $60 level on Brent. We're just sitting exactly on $60 at the moment. 62.25 is the upside target. We've had this 61.54 target in place for a while, and on the 1 minute charts we're seeing 62, 60.40, 60.20. These targets were all in place last week when we broke, and that's what we've done. So crude oil looking strong, and if we look at WTI, again similarly strong, no big surprises there, just running up the hill. US nat gas looking better at 292. We did pull back. We're at that 3 level. Breaking this 305, 306 level will be pretty key. We see long term we really are range bound between 275 and 310. But cold markets, cold weather in both Europe and North America could have an impact on gas prices. And if we look actually at the gas market globally, we're seeing here LNG pushing higher, so it found a floor. So that's looking stronger. Of course, we had massive moves in LNG last month. This is the March contract, and it's modeled data, so that's quite key. And if we look at with European gas, we see TTF, the blue chart here. These have all been normalized to MMBTU dollars. So again, we're seeing MBP taken from pence per therm into that calculation, and the same here with US nat gas. So we're seeing a real pull-up globally in gas markets, and that's of course having a big impact. So it'll be interesting to see whether that pushes US nat gas higher. Looking at coal, it's up 1.4% this morning. It hasn't been in bullish territory. We were bearish on coal last week. That paid off, but this week we've seen coal being dragged up with the mix. And of course, we are seeing emissions jumping really much higher. Again, we called this breakout in the week, and that's really just pushing higher still. Looking at MBP, we're up 12% this morning, so no big surprises there. We are in the coldest week now in the UK than we've seen for 3 years since the beast from the east, and that's obviously having an impact on short-term gas pricing. And the same with TTF, we're up 11% this morning. 21 was the breakout level, and we're sitting right on that at the moment. Big gap here, so that'll be interesting to see whether we come back and fill that gap or whether we can just hold that level. We need to stay above 20 euros really to be confident. We are seeing the break though on seasonal gas, and it's showing up much more clearly here. Again, a big gap. So don't be surprised if we pull back to what was resistance to become support. And of course, we aren't really yet breaking the high that we saw in January, so that's going to be quite key. Looking at German power, big moves here last week. We put out a report on Friday on LinkedIn. Big moves on German power, and how high can it go? 56.26 the target, 55. 32 on the 60-minute chart, and 58 not yet activated on the 1-minute chart. So really big moves here, and again keeping an eye on all of those European markets. And this chart we put out again on LinkedIn last week. All of these key long-term levels being really tested on German power, so that's going to be quite key as well. Of course, that means we're seeing strong moves on the quarterly. On French power, we're up 1.6% this morning. good upside targets there. If you're running on your OTC data, you'll have better granularity of data, of course, giving you targets. And the same on Dutch power. And if we look at Nordic power, it's up 4% on the CAL, looking strong in recovery, and on the quarterly contract breaking to new highs as well. So all in all, very strong start for the energy mix. Just keep a close eye for any pullbacks this week. But with this cold weather, looks like we'll stay there. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.